I'm 32, male, and I work as a software engineer. Most of my life has been pretty unremarkable, stable job, a small but solid circle of friends, and I keep to myself. I'm not the type who draws attention. That's probably why what happened to me feels so surreal. Even now, I'll admit, I'm still processing it. But let me walk you through what went down. About 6 months ago, I started noticing odd messages popping up on social media. Not directed at me, but about me. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years started tagging me in posts, asking things like, "Is this real or what happened?" At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone with a similar name passed away, and people were confusing us. But when I clicked on the links, my heart sank. Someone, my ex, as it turned out, had created an elaborate memorial page claiming I had died in a car accident. There was a somber black and white photo of me, a lengthy caption describing my tragic passing, and hundreds of comments from people mourning my loss. Let me back up for a second and give you some context. My ex and I broke up 2 years ago, and it wasn't amicable. She had been controlling, manipulative, and downright vindictive toward the end. I ended things after realizing I couldn't live with her constant need for drama and attention. She didn't take it well. There were angry texts, guilt trips, and even a failed attempt to get me fired from my job by claiming I'd stolen from the company. I hadn't. I cut all contact, blocked her on everything, and thought that was the end of it. Clearly, I was wrong. Seeing that post made my blood boil. Not only had she faked my death, but she was basking in the sympathy from mutual friends and strangers alike. People were donating money to her via a GoFundMe she'd set up for my funeral expenses. She was sharing teary-eyed videos about how devastated she was to lose me. I couldn't believe the audacity. My first instinct was to call her out publicly, but I held back. I wanted to handle this strategically. I screenshot everything, the posts, the comments, the fundraiser page, before she had a chance to delete or edit them. Then I reached out to a lawyer. I wanted to know my options, especially since she was profiting off this scam. The lawyer explained that what she was doing could potentially be considered fraud, especially if she was using my likeness without permission and soliciting money under false pretenses. He advised me to gather as much evidence as possible before confronting her. So, that's what I did. For 2 weeks, I kept tabs on her activity. She was really leaning into the role of the grieving ex, posting old photos of us, sharing fabricated stories about our final moments together, and even planning an online memorial service. That's when I decided enough was enough. I RSVP'd to the memorial service. It was being held on a live streaming platform, and she had invited everyone who'd commented on her posts. I created a new account with an alias so she wouldn't recognize me and joined as a viewer. The service was as ridiculous as you'd expect. Soft piano music playing in the background, a slideshow of photos of me, many of which I didn't even know she had, and her tearfully recounting how much I meant to her. Halfway through, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on my camera. "Hey, everyone," I said, interrupting her mid-sentence. Sorry to crash the party, but I thought it'd be weird to keep watching my own funeral in silence. The chat exploded with confusion and shock. People were typing, "Is this a joke? And what's going on?" Her face went pale. She stammered something about how I wasn't really me, that I must be some kind of cruel imposter trying to ruin her moment. But I held up my ID to the camera, along with today's newspaper for good measure. "I'm very much alive," I said. "And what you're doing here is not only disgusting, but it's illegal. You've been lying to everyone for attention and money, and I've got all the evidence to prove it." Her response? She doubled down, claimed I was lying to humiliate her, that I'd always been cruel to her, and that this was just another example. Some people in the chat sided with her, but most were horrified. The comments started flooding in. "How could you do this? I donated money. This is sick." I ended the stream shortly after, but the fallout didn't stop there. I reported her GoFundMe campaign, which was promptly shut down. Everyone who had donated received a notification about the fraudulent activity, and many of them demanded refunds. Some even reached out to me directly to apologize for believing her lies. I assured them they weren't to blame. She was a master manipulator, and I understood how convincing she could be. But I wasn't done yet. Using the evidence I'd gathered, I filed a police report for identity theft and fraud. My lawyer helped me draft a cease and desist letter, which we sent to her along with a warning that I'd pursue a civil lawsuit if she didn't issue a public apology and stop using my name or likeness in any way. At first, she ignored it, but when she realized I was serious, she finally backed down. She deleted all her posts, issued a half-hearted apology, and went radio silent. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. But then, about a month later, I got a call from a mutual friend who told me she'd started spreading rumors that I'd staged the whole thing as a prank to embarrass her. I couldn't believe it. This woman had no shame. But by then, no one was buying her stories anymore. Her reputation was in tatters, and she'd lost most of her social circle. The people who'd supported her initially were furious about being duped, and many of them cut ties with her completely. Looking back, I still feel a mix of anger and disbelief that someone could go to such lengths to manipulate and deceive others. But I also feel a sense of vindication. She tried to exploit my name and memory for her own gain, and in the end, it backfired spectacularly. If there's one thing I've learned from this, it's that some people will do anything for attention, but they rarely think about the consequences. And when those consequences come knocking, they usually hit harder than expected. After everything settled, I thought my life could finally return to normal. I was wrong. The aftermath of her actions lingered in ways I hadn't anticipated. People at work started whispering about me. Even though I had cleared my name, the sheer drama of it all had turned me into a bit of a spectacle. I hated the attention. Colleagues I barely knew would approach me in the break room, asking, "Hey, aren't you that guy whose ex faked his death?" Or worse, "So, are you really alive?" Like that was a funny joke. It wasn't just work either. Some family members reached out, worried that I had been keeping secrets. My aunt, bless her heart, was convinced I was in some kind of witness protection program. It took weeks to reassure everyone that I wasn't involved in anything illegal or dangerous. It was just a case of one unhinged ex-girlfriend trying to ruin my life. Still, the fallout wasn't all bad. Several of the people who had fallen for her scam reached out to me, not just to apologize, but to connect. A few even offered to help in case she tried to pull something like this again. One guy, an old college buddy I hadn't spoken to in years, became a surprising ally. "Man, I always thought she was off," he told me over coffee one day. "You dodged a bullet." He wasn't wrong. But while I was trying to move on, she wasn't done. About 2 months after the memorial, I got served with a restraining order. That's right, she tried to file a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing her and threatening her safety. It was laughable, but I wasn't about to take any chances. I immediately contacted my lawyer, who reassured me this was likely just another stunt to regain control of the narrative. He suggested we fight it head-on, and that's exactly what we did. The court hearing was surreal. Sitting across from her in that sterile courtroom, listening to her weave yet another web of lies, was infuriating. She claimed I had been stalking her, sending her threatening messages, and even showing up at her house unannounced. None of it was true, of course, and we had ample evidence to prove it. My lawyer presented screenshots of my social media activity, showing I hadn't interacted with her in years until the memorial incident. We also submitted the cease and desist letter as proof that I was the one trying to distance myself from her, not the other way around. The judge wasn't buying her story. After reviewing the evidence, the restraining order was denied, and she was given a stern warning about making false claims in court. I thought that would finally put an end to her antics. But I was wrong again. A few weeks later, I found out she had started contacting people from my past. Old friends, ex-girlfriends, even former co-workers trying to dig up dirt on me. She was grasping at straws, desperate to find anything that could tarnish my reputation. Most people saw through her immediately and alerted me, but one person, a former co-worker I barely knew, decided to play along. He fed her false information, claiming I had been involved in some shady dealings at work. She took the bait and started spreading those rumors online. At this point, I was fed up. I wasn't going to let her keep dragging my name through the mud. I hired a private investigator to gather information on her. What we found was both shocking and oddly satisfying. She had a history of pulling similar stunts with other people. Fake lawsuits, fraudulent fundraisers, even a few instances of identity theft. Armed with this information, I decided to go on the offensive. I filed a civil lawsuit against her for defamation, fraud, and emotional distress. This time, I wasn't just seeking justice. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her actions. The lawsuit garnered attention, and soon, people who had been scammed or targeted by her in the past started coming forward. A class action lawsuit was formed, and she was completely blindsided. The legal process was long and grueling, but the outcome was worth it. She was found liable for defamation and fraud and was ordered to pay restitution to everyone she had scammed. Her financial situation crumbled, and she had to declare bankruptcy. As for me, I finally got the closure I needed. Knowing she could no longer hurt anyone else was a relief. In the end, I realized that standing up for yourself isn't always about winning. It's about refusing to let someone else control your narrative. She tried to write my story for me, but I took the pen back. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. If you got your own wild X stories, feel free to share. I could use a laugh after all this. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You never know when life's next plot twist will hit.